Things are crazy in Utah. All right. You know, when I first talked about doing this special, and they brought down the set, they had all these things that, you know, right, we're going to build this thing. It's going to look like a spaceship. It'll be great. And I said, you know what? Just put a kitchen table down on the set, will you? And everybody looked at me and went, you want a kitchen table on the set? And I said, yeah. And they went to Pottery Barn, and they brought back these pictures of these great tables. And I said, no, I just want one. In fact, I'm really upset that they put the tablecloth on it too, because I just wanted it to look like my kitchen table. Because what I want you to do is I want you to start meeting with your friends around the kitchen table. These guys, they're not all superstars. Well, I mean, there's a couple here, people that you'll know, but they're not all superstars. They're just my friends. And I have invited my friends over here in the last week. I started doing something I'm going to ask you to do as well. And that is, get together with your friends and talk about the country. Talk about our principles. Talk about the values. Learn about our founding fathers. Do we have the books? Where are the books? Underneath everybody's seat here in the audience, there's some books here. I got a couple of books for you that you can start. This one's called The 5,000-Year Leap. It's fantastic. I want you to know I don't make any money on these things. The 5,000-Year Leap. It is the 29 principles that our founders put together and how they put this genius country together. The other one is The Real George Washington. Buy these two books and read them. This one's about honor and integrity. You tell me you've ever seen a politician like this guy. And this one is just, what do we really stand for? You read these, and you read them with your friends, and you meet once a week or once, you know, a couple times a month, and you start small, and you just really figure out what you believe in. I want to introduce you to another friend of mine. His name is Dave Checketts. He's the founder of SCP Worldwide, and Chris Gardner is a self-made millionaire who inspired the movie Pursuit of Happiness. Dave, I want to start with you, and the reason why I brought you on is because I heard you tell a story one time, and a lot of people will say, well, I'm awfully busy and I've got things to do. But again, it's about making the promise or keeping the promise that we had on 9/12, that we all knew our family was the most important. I don't even know if you know I'm going to ask you to tell the story. So I hope you don't mind. Don't be pissed at me. You were having one of the worst days of your career. You were running the Knicks, the New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden. You were running Radio City Music Hall. Horrible day. Your boss had you in his office, and he was reading you the riot act. Your secretary comes in and said, Dave, it's your children. Will you tell the rest of the story?
Well, Glenn, it's just one of those days, and it happened to be May 9th of 2001. And my son said to me, Dad, the family dog, Winston, has died. And Andrew and Ben and Elizabeth are all going to be home, and Mom's not here. She's out of town. And when they get home, it's going to be tough. Because Winston had lived for 15 years. I mean, he was one of those incredible dogs. He was part of the family. And I just simply said to my guy, I said, look, I've got something much more important. And I got home before the little ones got home, and I had one of the all-time days of my life, because we all got shovels. We went out in the yard. We dug the biggest hole. It took us until 9 p.m. to dig it. And then we wrapped Winston in a blanket from one of the boys' beds, actually. That's what they wanted to bury him in. We put him deep in the hole, and then we stood around, and everybody said something about him, and then we buried him.
Okay. What you left out of this story is, if I'm not mistaken, your boss said, where are you going? You ain't leaving here. You leave here, you're never coming back. Here you are in New York City. You're running Radio City, Madison Square Garden, and the New York Knicks. And you said, well, if that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be. And you left.
I did. Yeah.
Did you keep your job?
No, I didn't. That was really, that was it. But it was okay, Glenn, because it was after an 11-year run, and we'd had tremendous success, and I was ready for a change. And that's what convinced me I was ready for a change, because
family comes first.
The family And you know, now those boys are all grown up. If I had missed that day, I would really regret it. I don't miss the job, but I would have regretted it if I'd missed that day.
All right, now let me go to Chris Gardner, who, you know, usually when you're sitting around in your kitchen, America, you might be sitting around in your kitchen and you're like, you know, I got to have another friend over. I'll have him over via satellite. Chris, you are the guy who I watched Will Smith play in The Pursuit of Happiness, and I cannot get that scene out of my mind where you are on the floor in that train station with your son. I can't imagine what that was like, and you were, you know, crying and weeping and thinking about the future of yourself and your child. I wanted to talk to you because you are a guy that can answer the question. Because right now, people are, if you don't believe in, you know, big government or you know, bailing people out and welfare, well, you're just a hate monger. You are a guy who had nothing. What would have happened to you if somebody would have bailed you out?
I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. And I am so thankful that, before I say anything, real quick, Glenn, I want to thank you for putting this idea together, the 912 Project, this gathering of friends, families, and folks all around this country. I don't know if anyone said thank you. I want to say thank you.
Thanks.
And I also...
I have to tell you, first of all, Chris, I have to apologize because I think I'm actually turning into Tammy Faye Baker. I'm crying, I'm getting puffy, I mean, anyway.
Well, lighten up on the mascara a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want to...
You can tell?
But let me say this, going back a little bit about these principles of family being most important. That scene you saw in that film, 28 years old, with my child, what a lot of people don't realize is major difference between reality and the film. Jaden Smith played my son as a 5-year-old. My son was 14 months old, Glenn.
Oh my gosh.
And I made the decision as a 5-year-old boy that when I grow up and become a man, my children were going to know who their father is, and that I would break the cycle of men who were not there for their children. I made that decision, Glenn, at 5 years old. And that goes right to the principles, one of the principles that you're talking about, the importance of family. So 23 years later, at 28 years old, and I had made that decision at 5. If I have to sleep on the bathroom in a train station with a baby tied on my back, I'll do it, but I'm going to be there for my children.
Okay, let me just open this up here and try to demonstrate. And we're, by the way, you want to know how we surround them? We have the biggest server we could possibly get for the 912 project. I was just told in the commercial break, it's gone down. It has been bombarded with people. So go back to it, and it's amazing. Right at the top of the hour here, right at the top of the hour at 6 o'clock Eastern time, we are going to go and move this from the network to the Fox News website, foxnews.com, and we're going to have a little round table. We're going to kind of talk about some of the issues. I'll show you how this works. I would like to do this here real quick. Do we have time? I'd like to do a little bit of it real quick and just look through the paper. I mean, if you see all of the things that are going on, how do we use those principles and those values to solve some of the problems of the day? How do we say, for instance, do we bail the banks out? Everyone will say, well, of course we have to because the economy. Is that our principle? Is that what we're trying to do? How do we solve that, Dave?
Well, look, the economic issues are so complex, Glenn, that it is going to take a real discussion on all of our parts. That's where what you've done is so valuable, to get some voices involved here, because nationalizing banks or subsidizing banks may be the exact wrong thing to do. And those who have run banks improperly or who have ruined financial institutions. A few of them may have to go down, at least in my view, before we start to get out of this.
Here's the problem. Everything is so complex that we don't know how. We just, like zombies, we just look at people and just like, okay, well, I guess we should do that. And people will tell you, well, you don't really understand. You don't know all the complexities. And that's true. But that cuts us out of the dialogue.